any declaration of interest regarding any item on today's agenda? Seeing none, if one should arise, you can declare it at that time. Our first and only report today is the alignment of 2024 Senior Management Team Work Plan with Corporate Strategic Plan. And that is going to be presented by CAO Wingrove. So if I could have a motion to receive that for information. Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Keaveney. Thank you very much. Welcome, Kim, and the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay. I have a bit of a presentation to take you through this afternoon. Okay, so one moment. Turn this to a presentation. Okay, how's that working for us? Okay. Except for it didn't turn into a presentation. There we go. All good?
Yes, it is. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
At least it is here anyway.
Okay, excellent. All right. So I'm really pleased this afternoon to provide you with an update on our new strategic plan and the work plans for each of the departments for 2024. The working title for the strategic plan is Working Together for Success. Now, you are lucky to be getting the first look at how the strategic plan goals and objectives have been laid out. And I am looking for your feedback on the description of those priorities and goals in the draft plan. Any feedback is most welcome. I want to know that everything is clear. Is there anything that you feel that we talked about in our earlier workshops at the end of last year? Has anything been missed prior to this coming to council? And I will note that I think in the report, I'd hoped that I could bring the strategic plan to the March 28th meeting, but that meeting is a short one because of the other event that the council's been invited to in Town of the Blue Mountains. So I'm wondering if it needs to get pushed until the April meeting, just so there's enough time to speak to it. But again, I'd like your feedback about that. So in addition to talking about the county strategic plan, I did want to go over some of the details around the work plans that have been developed for each of the 14 members of the strategic or the senior management team. They finalized those work plans with me in February and are now working towards their implementation. Those work plans, as I indicated in the report, include 76 different initiatives that are aligned with the strategic plan goals, and many of them are planned to be completed this year, and many others maybe initiated this year and the years, but will take more than 1 year to actually reach completion. So consistent with the past strategic plans that the county's had, Pillar 1 is an inward focusing pillar, talks about internal operations and service delivery. The priority here is continuous improvement in our operational efficiency and service delivery. The goal of that work is to contain our costs and improve service access and quality, and trying to be as innovative as we can in doing so. The activities that are under this pillar are kind of divided up into 4 different groups. One is about reducing risk and liability. I mean, these continuing stories that we are receiving about, security breaches, and that I think this week was Huntsville as well as Hamilton's dealing with a terrible problem. We really want to be on top of what's happening with risk and with the liability that comes to us from contracts and insurance, et cetera, across the whole organization. Quality and customer service, improving our financial forecasting and reporting, and really cost containment is an overriding thing here. And I'm just going to show you, it's hard to see because there's so much detail, but I wanted you to get a sense of what those individual initiatives look like. So if I show you on my screen, can you see that this is a part of the summary of all of the strategic plan or work plans, I should say, from each of the senior management team. So you can see that reduced risk and liability is there, quality and customer service, forecasting and reporting. And then there are a number of initiatives that are listed under that. Each one of those specific things is assigned to one of the departments and has a timeline associated with it. And this is consistent across all of the 4 pillars as the way that we've handled that. The one that's missing from the page because it didn't fit on my slide was about cost containment. And, under that particular grouping, you've got the purchasing management software that allows us to commit funds and also track carefully what's happening with contracted services and tender projects. Where are they in their life cycle, so we can always have better kind of real-time information about where our spending, what's happening with our spending. There's also work here around asset management and the asset sharing discussions that we had in the workshop in August. Trying to get a start on how we can work with the member municipalities around that, and if there's an ability to kind of rationalize procurement or the sharing of not infrastructure, but I want to say things like trucks. And we talked about snow plows at the meeting, but I mean, I think there's other examples there. The other piece that is a big help in this area is having access to good data and being able to do trend analysis. So you can sort of, intentionally focus on what's happening with your costs. And, for things where you're seeing anomalies or significant spikes, you can dig into that if you have the information and try to, change course or, do something to try and contain the costs, or take a different tack and decide that you're going to run your operation a different way to actually avoid those costs. So that's the first pillar. The next pillar of the strategic plan is building communities for the future. And overall, this is about being good stewards of public funds, doing proactive and appropriate planning, and making sure that our spending is such that we're getting the largest return on the investments that we make. So Grey County's infrastructure programs and services are future ready and sustainable. The goal is to collaborate to create and implement plans, programs, and infrastructure investments to support resident quality of life and business success. And again, the activities here are broken down into 4 different groups. Planning and infrastructure, so some examples there. The roads needs task force, so what's going to happen with those urban cross sections and the road network. One of the things we identified was the need to look at an infrastructure master plan across the whole county, and this is working between the county and the member municipalities. The paramedic bases and the deployment review recommendations would fall under here. The next group, economic development, tourism, culture. County adopted the strategic plan for economic development. And in that, there are recommendations around investment readiness and investment attraction. We have a CIP program that's been successful. While we didn't put additional funds into it this year, we do want to keep that going and continue to focus that where it can be most effective. We're also planning an economic development leadership forum for later this fall to, again, try and bring all of the stakeholders and partners together to celebrate and look to the future. Another group of activities here is around protecting our environment. So this is our climate change action plan, reducing our emissions, improving both our climate adaptation as well as resilience in our infrastructure. This is the EV charging project that's happening, as well as there's a community of practice right now looking into waste management and where there might be opportunities there to work collaboratively together. Final group of activities here is really around our First Nations and reconciliation and relationship building. Planning is leading an archaeological master plan project with our First Nations, and that's meant to really assist in the development of sector. Our you I read so many reports, I get mixed up. I think you did get, I think, a report from Scott that did touch on the archaeological management plan. I think I've read it, and I think that it's come to you. So I don't want to, I'm not surprising you here, but the idea that from a development perspective, it's very much appreciated by that sector that they come into their planning process knowing where there may be areas of significance that are going to require additional study or additional time. So this is really meant to kind of take that broad perspective and provide that information back to the sector so that if a class 1 study has been complete, they have a better sense of the amount of time and investment they're going to have to put into a particular area before it would be ready to see building take place. Other things there, we're working with our First Nations around some of the climate change initiatives, working with Mawikwadong, the Giwi program that ran for a number of years with Mawikwadong is reaching its conclusion. And so we want to continue to work with Mawik to see if there are still, other opportunities for us to continue to build those relationships and facilitate understanding and cooperation amongst all the different stakeholders when it comes to those kinds of initiatives. Grey Roots continues to have its advisory circle that helps with the programs and exhibits at Grey Roots. And so we're thankful to those people for all of their efforts to inform and guide our activities, and we want to keep that going forward. The next pillar, the third pillar, is around workforce development. And this particular one is very much a regional focused one. It's not just a county one. It's really all of the member municipalities and ourselves. We know that by 2027, 15% of the county's workforce will be eligible to retire. So that's 150 people in the next 3 years. And I don't think that probably our member municipalities are very different. This particular pillar was discussed quite a lot with the CAOs. I know that several of the member municipalities have vacancies in key positions. So the priority here is about workforce attraction, retention, and skills development. And we want to do what we can to develop the skills and experience of our staff to meet current and future requirements. Overall, I would say that the focus is building and executing plans that will give our staff the training and experience they need to be ready for the next role, or even just to stay optimally productive in the role that they have now. So where we're collaborating on bringing in training in a particular thing like project management, for example, or offering people secondments and temporary assignments so that they can get experience, maybe as a backfill for a leave or something like that, and then bring that back to their home position. There simply aren't, I don't think, the people just available to us to assume that we will be able to get along without this focus. Turnover is expensive. People need to be onboarded. They need to be trained. They have a lot to. So if we can keep them kind of within the Grey County family and moving forward, I think there's some real benefits to us, financial and otherwise. I think moving staff back and forth between the upper and lower tier has benefits when people understand the operating environments of their close partners. I think it, and they have relationships there. I think it eases the ability for people to do business productively. The big project for the county this year is this Dayforce implementation. Just like in the first slide, in the first pillar, it's really about the Questica implementation, which is the financial software for budgeting. Those two projects, both I think are going to pay us big dividends, but it's going to be a lot of work this year to get those things implemented and staff trained and them functioning as we want them to. The fourth pillar, the final one, is giving everyone a place to call home. The housing crisis, hasn't disappeared. And we really, our goal here is to improve access to housing for all residents in all different forms. We want to increase the availability of housing options across the continuum to meet current and future needs. So this involves a number of different initiatives, the infrastructure capacity planning, the planning efficiencies report that you heard about recently. It's the housing action plan recommendations and getting those implemented. Anne Marie's working on a new 10-year housing and homelessness plan, the Rockwood Terrace build that has 28 new long-term care beds, making sure that the motel as an emergency housing option is functioning optimally, etc. So that's just a few of the things there. And I go on. So as far as the monitoring and evaluation aspect to all of this, the work plan initiatives for each of the senior management team have deliberately been made specific, measurable, achievable in for the ones that are in this year plan, and they have a completion date. I meet quarterly with the members of SMT just to talk about what's happening with their work plans and to update their information. This committee receives updates in June and September, and then, as we've done in the past, I'll bring a report to council about the strategic plan and our progress on executing and meeting the goals and objectives in that plan to council for their review and comment. And so the last slide I have for you today is just really to touch on the risks and the challenges. Economic uncertainty and cost pressures, I think, are really top of mind at the moment. Can we maintain or improve the service levels that we have? Are we going to have the necessary resources to be able to do that? What is going to happen with growth? Or can we expect that, slow and steady growth to continue, or are we anticipating something very different either one way or another? Organizational capacity, as I mentioned, and staff morale. Everybody, and it's not just at the county, I think it's everywhere, is very, very busy, and maintaining that level of output and focus, and it's really necessary and important, but it's also a challenge. Contract management, I added this because it's been more and more my experience over the last year or so that the private sector is having similar challenges to what we are. They seem to be stretched very thin. When we put things out and we don't get bids, or we've contracted with someone and they're not able to meet the deadlines that we've discussed, that can be a big challenge. So something that we have to really pay attention to in our contracts is, what tools do we have in place to ensure that we have hired the right person to begin with, but that they're able to actually deliver as we need to and aren't putting a larger project at risk. Um, Public engagement and support is always important. Some of the things that I've mentioned here this afternoon do, and I'll have a either require some public engagement or participation or just generally need their support. And we want to ensure that we continue to be aligned with what the public expects and appreciates. Finally, unforeseen legislation and regulatory changes are always with us. We have a provincial budget on March 26th and a federal one on April 16th. And I think, there may be changes in either one of those that have an impact on us, for good or for not. But those were the things I think that were, top of mind for me. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'm happy to take any questions or receive any comments on what you've heard this afternoon. That was kind of a whirlwind tour.
All right. Thank you, Kim. That was a good report. Lots of stuff there. A lot of work being done and needs to be done. Are there any questions for Kim on her presentation? Councillor Bourdignon, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Warden, through you to Kim. Thanks, Kim, for the presentation. More so in regards to the strategic plan. In blue, we're looking at roles as because through attrition and concern about moving forward with positions. Are you also looking at the roles of the positions, either maybe dissolving positions, creating, amalgamating, sort of to put not just the roles that are current, but taking a look in its totality of maybe creating new roles and diminishing others? Is that part of the strategic outlook that you're doing?
When it comes to specifically to that staffing
Yeah, specifically the
pillar,
staffing.
yeah. No, I think that's always been the case, but I think we will need to be more intentional and more focused on that as the work changes. So do the requirements and the skills. I'll give you an example. Right now, we're in the midst of the really a transition in social services, and the province had started down a road of centralizing intake. They outsourced or started down the road of outsourcing the employment aspect of this, and then our staff were meant to only have to do intake on those clients who had some sort of extraordinary circumstances, and then beyond that, our role was to provide sort of wraparound services and support. And it's very challenging for people to step into a role like that, like that. And that kind of change is happening everywhere. Like, look at the work that housing's doing now compared to the work that housing did even 5 years ago. We have 24/7 emergency shelter. We have, there's just been a real shift there, and the organization, the kind of positions that need to be filled, the kind of work that needs to be done just isn't the same. So it's really an ongoing thing. And I guess the thing too is that when you've got good employees that you've invested in, that you've trained up or whatever, it's that constant, okay, where next for you, right? What's the best use of the skills that you have? Can we move people around in the organization so that we have everybody in the right place, doing the most productive kind of activities? But it's a pretty significant kind of effort to make sure that you're staying on top of that and helping the people and helping the corporation at the same time. And then more broadly, like across, as I say, across all of our municipalities, looking at that as well, right? If we can offer people a little bit different breadth or scope of work, as to be able to allow them to maybe stay in the role. You're still an X, whatever X is, but you now have responsibility for another location or, a broader group of projects. Like that's a way to, keep people in the organization and keep them growing and learning in their career without having them to, have to go away or leave us in order to get that additional experience.
Exactly, through the warden. That's exactly what your last points is what we're
Right.
driving at. Because that's what we're trying, especially if you have a superstar. I know we
Right.
all good employees, but if you're a good, better, best, and you help them grow that role. So that's what we're doing at the local level, is saying,
Yeah.
okay, if this person is doing this, can we expand their role?
Yes.
And hopefully that will keep them for the near term
Exactly.
to keep
Yeah.
great, even better stuff. So thank you for
Yeah.
the answer.
Good question. Councillor Keaveney, you were next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. And I did have a couple of questions, but you're welcome to come back to me, Mr. Warden, if you'd like to.
Oh,
My
that's
first
good.
one is, thank you. My first one is in relation to internal operations and service delivery. And Kim, as you spoke to that, I wonder if you're almost talking about an internal service delivery review. And what I really like about your report is that I think it's really appropriate for where we are at, not just at the county level, but it shows that you also really recognize the challenges that are facing all of us as lower tiers. So I'm thinking as you go through that process of the continuous improvement, there will be a lot of benefit to all of us as you talk at several points during the report about the sharing of services. So again, I've come back to the thought of it appears to me as if it's almost an internal service delivery review. Is that how you were approaching it?
I think there are a number of areas where absolutely we are stepping back and looking at across this, all of us, all 9 member municipalities and the county in particular areas of service. And I mentioned planning and I mentioned waste management. I talk about, our infrastructure. Is there an opportunity for us to really take a hard look at the way that that's being delivered? We being, are we prepared for the future? Are we being cost effective? Are there efficiencies or economies that can be realized by taking things in a different way? Now, each one of those areas has some specific characteristics and some legislative requirements and that are influencing it. But like in general, I think you're absolutely right, Shirley.
Thank you. And with your indulgence, Mr. Warden, I'll ask my second question.
Absolutely.
If we come down towards the end of the presentation and we're looking at, let's get it in front of me, giving everyone a place to call home. And Kim, you mentioned community bonds, and I was really pleased to see that. And I just wondered if you could share a little bit about how you thought the county might approach that. Do you see the county actually backing those community bonds?
So this is a discussion that's planned for the Budget and Finance Committee in June. And so Calvin, our manager of revenue, is doing some research to bring it forward. I think the most recent information I had was from City of Ottawa about their municipal bonds. I think some of you might be familiar with work that Habitat for Humanity has done in Guelph, Wellington, has had excellent success with their bond issues. And so I think we want to look at that and see what are the risks, what are the opportunities, what's the appetite for this. Habitat for Humanity's model is one where the bonds are issued about a particular project. And they also make it very clear that you come in on that project, you come in on the front end, and when that project is complete, you're paid out. If you want to roll over your investment into another project, you're welcome to do that. If this was all the fun you ever wanted to have with this just one, then we'll give you your return and off you go. But that works well. The City of Ottawa one is, of course, different scale and for a longer term. But I think there are models that are out there, and if depending on what happens, would this give us access to some additional resources in a way that we have a little bit more control and certainty over. You know, we sometimes, us and partners sometimes have important projects. We need access to funding to realize those projects, but we're into a competitive, you know, system with the province or the federal government or whatever, and sometimes you're fortunate and sometimes you aren't. And then in that case, that good project can't go forward. And that's, you know, sometimes less than optimal. So, you know, it does this give us another path, another way to make those projects happen. So I think, I don't know, we've heard at 2 or 3 different meetings in the public that there might be some interest in this. So we just wanted to explore it a little further.
Okay, Shirley?
Thank you very much, Kim, for that discussion. I'm also really interested in this topic, and you'll be aware that there is a group that's done a lot of research on this, and if you're ready to go forward with it, I think maybe a partnership opportunity right here locally. So yeah, look forward to talking about this further, Kim. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Warden.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, discussion, thoughts? Okay, well, thank you, Kim. Is there anything else you are bringing forward? I don't think so. No?
Not today. I just, you know, again, what did we do you want to see the strategic plan on the 28th of March? Like, can we, I mean, I could introduce it that day and then I could look for feedback from council. If they wanted to have a more fulsome discussion, we could put it on the next agenda. I am feeling badly that, you know, it's more delayed than I would like it to be. And
well, I wonder if maybe you did introduce it, or if you did introduce it on the 28th, just as information.
Yeah.
And allows council, you know, a week
To
or
read
two to chew on it, because there is a lot of information in there. Yeah, and it deserves a wholesome discussion, I think. So maybe
that's a good strategy. I'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it over 2 meetings then, and I'll get it out in the agenda package and to be received for information, and then I'll put it on a future agenda, actually for some discussion.
Yep. No, I think that would be good. I'm seeing a few heads nodding. That's good. All right. I don't believe there's any reason to go into closed session. Okay. Any other business come before this meeting today? Don't believe so. The next meeting date apparently is to be determined. Kayla will tell me when that is. I have one final motion to adjourn. Councillor Eccles, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bordignon. Thank you very much. All those in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned at 1:33. I don't think that's a record, but it's close. All right. Thank you all. And
thank you.